بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا وزدنا علما إنك أنت العليم الحكيم اللهم آمين وبعد. We continue with Safinat al-Najat by Sheikh Salim ibn Abdullah al-Hadrami rahimahullah ta'ala. Last we've concluded the arkan of wudu and the sunnah of wudu, and so for those of you who were not here, I encourage you to refer to the recordings and to inshallah ta'ala catch up on those durus. Tonight, inshallah, we will start, if I can find the page. We'll start discussing quickly the categories of water, and I'll mention the relevance of this topic. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created water as a source of life and as a source of purification. And so Allah describes the as water, وَجَعَلْنَا مِنَ الْمَاءِ كُلَّ شَيْءٍ حَيٍّ, and we've made everything living from water. And then the other ayah, وَأَنزَلْنَا مِنَ السَّمَاءِ مَاءً طَهُورًا, and we brought down from the heavens or from the sky purifying water. And so water is kind of the default means to purify oneself and to purify also from najasa. Page 15. To purify from najasa. And so classically the way the scholars divided water is they divided water into a few categories. One is they defined it by little and a lot. So they would say there's a little amount of water and there's a lot of water. And so that's what the author, rahimahullah, he says, water is either little or abundant on page 15. So there's little water or a lot or abundant water. How do you define little or abundant? Before we continue, to us modern, people living in the modern world, especially in the Western society, much of this doesn't apply, or we can't really, it's not that it doesn't apply, but that the modern, our plumbing systems, our water systems, the flow of water, it's different than what people used to use back, just a century ago. There would be containers and wells and so on and so forth. And so water, the scholars would define, like if you had a small container versus a large container, how do you purify a small container versus a large container? When does it become used? For us, we're receiving consistent fresh water, right, from the faucet. So you're receiving clean water all day, and then that used water automatically goes down the drainage. So that's why, today it's a bit different in that sense that, we're not using containers. But if you are using a container, that's where the ruling would apply. If you have some type of bucket or some type of water container, this is where those rulings would apply. So we'll just go over it briefly. And so he says a little amount of water is that which is less than 2 qullas. And so the author, he defines 2 qullas in the next part. And then abundant water is that which is 2 qullas or more. And so that's 190 liters of water. So it's a lot, those, just to get an image of a 2 liters, those 2-liter soda cans, right, the big soda bottles, right? That's 2 liters. So 2 qullas is 190. So it's a lot of water, right? Like you're talking like maybe a bathtub full of water. That's kind of considered 2 qullas, like significantly a large amount of water. We call that a large amount. Less than that, if you had like a small bucket of water, we call that a small amount. Is that clear? And then he says, a little amount of water will become impure when any impurity falls into it, even though the water does not change. This is an important hukum. He said if the water is little in amount, right, if you have like a bucket, if a little drop of najasa enters that water is no good. Is that so? If you have less than the 190 liters of water, roughly, if let's say just a drop of water entered that water, a drop of, blood, or a drop of urine, or something filthy, something najis entered that water. Even if nothing changes, that water is considered najis. That's why it's important to know little amount of water versus abundant. Little, any contact with najasa makes the entire water najis. Abundant water, he says, abundant water will not become impure except when its taste, color, or smell changes. For abundant water to become najis, there has to be a visible change. You see a change in the color, or at least, smell, or the taste. You're tasting it, okay, this is not normal. Then the water is najis at that time. Does that now make it clear why we know little versus a lot? Right? That's kind of the wisdom. So again, with running water today, you have your faucets. This doesn't really apply. The only time it would apply maybe if you were taking a bath. Let's say you're taking a bath, and najasa got into the bathtub. If najasa got into the bathtub, does the water become najis? Not really, because it's abundant. It's more than 190 liters of water. Does that make sense? For it to become najis, it has to change in color. Do you guys see that? In a bath, right? So if somebody, let's say you're taking a bath and you had a cut and some blood got into the water, but the color of the water didn't change. Is the water najis? No. If the water is abundant, the color or smell and taste, one of the things have to change for it to be najis. Does that make sense? If it's abundant, there has to be change. That's important. If there's abundant water, there has to be what? Change. If there's no change, it's pure. You're good. You get out of the bath, go pray your salah. You're fine. Make your wudu, go pray your salah. You can make wudu with the bath water that you're inside of. Does that make sense? That wudu, the bath water that you're using, you can make wudu with it. As long as it didn't change, it's pure. So you can keep reusing it. Does that make sense? If it's a little, if it's like a bucket, right? If you have a bucket of water, if a small drop of najis gets into it, you got to dump it. Does that make sense? You dump it. You don't use it again. It's done. It's najis. You don't touch it again. Does that make sense? Little versus abundant, and the hukum and how they change versus little and abundant. Okay. That's important. For abundant, the smell, taste, or color has to change. For little, simple contact with najasa makes it najis. That's just the hukum there. So we're not going to spend too much time. We're going to move on. The next ahkam, the next section, the muallif rahimahullah, he says, mujibat al-ghusli sittah. He says the things make a ritual a bath compulsory are 6. So the bath is the ghusl, right? What is a ghusl? Is to wash your entire body, right? For the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as a ibadah. There are 6 things that make ghusl wajib. There are many things that make it sunnah. We're not talking about sunnah. We're talking about the 6 things that make ghusl wajib. Number 1, insertion of the head of the penis into vagina, sexual intercourse. And this is even for a brief second. The moment there's insertion, ghusl is wajib on both the man and woman. That's the first mujibat al-ghusl. Number 2, discharge of semen. And this is, for example, in the case of a wet dream. Right, so a person had semen discharge, and so the ghusl is wajib. They automatically have to take ghusl. One ruling that's important to mention here, and this is something that is actually very practical, is that there are 3 types of fluids that are similar that discharge from the private part. For both male and female, it applies. Semen is a sexual fluid. So there's that sexual arousal and gratification. It's thick and heavy. That requires ghusl. Another type of discharge is pre-sexual fluid. And this is when somebody becomes aroused. Then there's a white discharge. That one doesn't require ghusl. It just requires wudu, and it's najis. You have to wash it off and make wudu. So this is pre-sexual intercourse. This is if somebody gets aroused, they saw something that aroused them, or they had foreplay with their spouse, and so there's a discharge of this pre-sexual fluid. This one is not semen. It's very important to not mix the two up. It is not semen. This is called medhi. This is called medhi. And so this one requires washing off and wudu. This one requires washing off and wudu. So we call this pre-sexual fluid, in Arabic, medhi. And so I encourage the brothers who are following this to really know this hukum and to write it down, because oftentimes people, I've seen that often people come to me and they're like, Ya Shaykh, do I take ghusl for this? I'm like, no, there's no ghusl for this. Do not mix up semen with medhi, with pre-sexual fluid. They're two different things. They're very similar, they look similar, but they're very different. Semen is sexual fluid. It comes with gratification, with either intercourse or wet dream. Amma medhi is pre-sexual, and it comes with arousal and excitement, and this is a sign of maturity. Sorry, not a sign of maturity. This pre-sexual, and it comes with arousal and excitement, and this is only najis. You have to wash it off your clothes and the skin, and you have to make wudu after it. It breaks the wudu. It's equivalent to urine, the hukum of it. The third one is called wadi. All right, and what is this one? This one is heavy fluid that comes after fatigue or urination. And so sometimes after urination or fatigue, there might be a heavy discharge of heavy white fluid. That as well only requires washing off and wudu. So these are three types of fluids that are very similar, that have, the rulings are different. Semen requires ghusl. The other two, which are called wadi, which is kind of like discharge after urination or fatigue, and the other one is medhi, which is pre-sexual fluid. Those two are najis. They have to be washed off, and wudu has to be made for them. As for semen, you have to make ghusl for it. And so this is very important, a hukum to know, and it's very practical. So that requires ghusl, discharge of semen. Number 3, menstruation. And so menstruation for women, after their menses ends, they are required to make ghusl. Number 4, postnatal bleeding. This is after a woman's, after birth, she has her postnatal bleeding, which is called nifas. And so it's typically 40 days long. And so after the 40 days, she has to take ghusl. Number 5, childbirth. And the reason they mention childbirth, this is in the case if a woman has a child without any bleeding after. And so she has to take ghusl after giving birth if there's no bleeding. This is only in the case if there's no bleeding. So childbirth has to be clarified, that it is only in the case if there's no bleeding after birth, which is very rare and atypical, right? You won't abnormal. It's not something that you'll see often. But if it does occur to a woman that she has a child, and for subhanAllah, for whatever reason, she didn't have bleeding, then she's required to take ghusl even without bleeding. And number 6, if I counted right, number 6, death. And so this washing is wajib on the Muslimin. It's not wajib on the person, because the person, their taklif ended with death. Once a person dies, there's no ahkam. No, there's no wajib, haram, sunnah, none of that applies. All the ahkam apply to the living people, right? They're the mukallafun. And so the community is obligated to wash that person, right? And so that's why it's a fard kifaya that there be janazah service available for every Muslim community. There should be men and women who are available and who are trained in washing a dead body. And if you haven't had the experience of washing a mayyit, I encourage you to get that experience and to get that education. I think Sheikh Sufyan, he did a course on how to do the janazah, the burial, the washing, the shrouding. I think a few months ago, he did it at Jami' al-Muslimin. And so if that course comes up again, I'll inshallah notify you guys. That's a beneficial course, inshallah, to take part in. So those are the 6 mujibat al-ghusl. These are the 6 things that make ghusl wajib. Other than this, ghusl is sunnah for different occasions. There are many occasions where ghusl is sunnah. I'll mention a few. One is Salatul Jum'ah. If you're coming to Jum'ah, not if you're just on a Friday. This is if you're coming to Jum'ah, male or female. If you're coming to Jum'ah, it's sunnah to take ghusl. It's on the day of Eid, it's sunnah to take ghusl. If the smell of your body changes, if you start to smell, some people would just take a shower just like, I feel dirty, I want to take a shower. That person, they get no reward. There's no intention for Allah. It's just they're doing it because they want to be clean. There's no ajr in that. But if you do it because you are doing the sunnah to wash yourself, it's ibadah. It's ibadah. So you do ghusl. So every time you feel dirty, you're like, I want to take a shower, make the intention of ghusl, and that ghusl is considered a sunnah ghusl for you. When you want to do ihram and you go to umrah, you want to make your ihram, do your ghusl. Some of the scholars, they add, and this is actually a very strong opinion, it is sunnah to take a ghusl every time you go to a gathering, a large gathering of people. So some of them even say every night of Taraweeh you're supposed to take ghusl. Because why are you gathering with a large group of people? So anytime you gather with a large group of people, you should smell well. You should be clean. Your body should be clean. Rid of any foul odors. So they say it's sunnah to take a ghusl every time you go to any large gathering of people, be it in the masjid, at Taraweeh, or be it at a social event, be it at a family gathering, whatever the occasion. If there's a large group of people, we're not talking 10, 15, but at least significantly large, more than what is usual, where people are going to be interacting, mingling, and it's sunnah for you to take ghusl for that as well. So these are some of the places where it's sunnah to take ghusl. And now we continue with the next section. The next section, the author, rahimahullah, he says, any questions about the types of water, and also the obligatory, the actions, the matters that require ghusl? Any questions about that? Mujibat al-ghusl?
Menstruation, what a maximum day for...
We're going to get to that. The maximum days of menstruation and the minimum and all of that. It's going to come up, inshallah.
So for the Mehdi, like let's say some of the precum got on your clothing, you said you have to wash it, right?
Yep, it's najis, so you have to wash it off your clothes. And this is for the Mehdi. M-A-D-H-Y. M-A-D-H-Y. It is called pre-sexual fluid. This one is najis. You have to wash it off your clothes, wash it off your skin, and you have to make wudu. Yeah. So that one is najis. It's like urine. If you leak urine onto yourself, you have to wash it off your clothes, your skin, and make wudu. Same rule. And then you do tayammum. But access to no water has to be really you have no access. It's not a matter of convenience. Convenience is different than no access, right? Convenience can be like, okay, maybe there's no running water, but you can get a bucket of water and take a bath with a bucket. Maybe for us it's inconvenient because we're so used to having showers always running, right? That's inconvenience. You still have to do that. That's not considered having no access, right? Or something of that sort. So no water means you completely have no water. Like there's no water in the city, within a distance of your locality. There's water you cannot purchase. There's nothing running. Like it is no water, literally no water available. Then at that point you do tayammum. Now another case where you might have to do tayammum is if you're sick. There's water available, you have a fever, and let's say now a person had a wet dream and they have a fever. They don't take ghusl. They do tayammum and they go pray. Khalas. That's it. Because they can. So for that person, they make tayammum because of their inability. Wallahu a'lam. And we'll talk about tayammum.
If we don't have any water except salt water.
Salt water is fine. Salt water, river water, lake water, springs, melted snow, ice, or like freezing water, all of that is pure. Because any natural, unchanged natural water is permissible to use. Any unchanged natural water is permissible to use. And there's explicit hadith. The Prophet ﷺ, he was questioned about, people who travel the sea, and they said, we travel the sea, can we use this water? Because it's salt water. Sahaba were like, how do we deal with this water? It's different than, right, your non-salt water, or whatever, fresh water, right? And so the Prophet ﷺ, he told them, al-hillu maytatuh الطهور ماء والحل ميتته. He said the sea, its water is pure and its dead animals are halal. So sea animals, you don't have to slaughter. They die, you eat them right away. Land animals, you cannot eat a dead land animal without slaughter. So if you see a chicken that died or a deer or whatever, you can't just say, oh, this is dead, I'm going to eat it, bismillah. You can't. It's haram. With land animals, you have to make sure it was slaughtered. You have to be 100% certain it was slaughtered. With sea animals, the Prophet ﷺ, he said the default for sea is opposite than land. Anything that dies in the sea, eat it. You never have to slaughter anything. There's a joke. Today they put halal brand on everything. Halal sticker. One sheikh, he said, one day I went to the market, and one of these companies, they put halal on a pack of fish. He said, they're playing games with the Muslimin. They're taking advantage of them. There's no haram fish. What do you mean halal, right? Because any fish from the sea is halal, right? So they put a halal sticker on the fish, So he said, be careful what you eat. Be careful of the meat. Don't just trust any label, but make sure you look for trustworthy companies, because a lot of these companies, they'll just put a sticker on the food just to make money, right? Halal fish. So does that make sense? But the sea, so there's a specific hadith, the water is pure and its animals are halal. Yeah. طيب, inshallah. Any questions left regarding these masail?
You say our blood is a najis?
Our blood is najis. Blood is najis. And we'll talk about the types of najis, inshallah, shortly, inshallah. We're going to get to najasa. But blood is najis, so if blood contacts water, then that water is najis. Allahu alam. Any other questions?
Same amount of urine, any other najis, right?
Yeah, urine, blood, any small amount is najis. With blood, there is excuse. If you have a little bit of blood on your skin or clothes, it's fine. With urine, it's not. So with blood, if you have let's say I don't know, a drop, like the size of maybe a dime or something, like a small size, a nickel size of blood, something, you don't have to wash it, you can pray, it's fine. A little bit of blood on your clothes is okay. A little bit of blood is permissible. Not urine. Urine, even a drop, you have to wash it. If you know a drop of urine, you were using the restroom and subhanAllah, one drop of urine got on your clothes, you have to wash it. Not a drop is excused of urine or any other najasa. Blood is the only najasa that even if you have some of it on your skin or your clothes, you can still pray with it. Just a bit, not too much. A small amount is excused. Make sense? So that's an important on the ruling of blood. All right. All right, let's get into the next section. Bismillah. The author, rahimahullah, he says, فروض الغسل اثنان. The compulsory acts of ghusl are two. There are two things you have to do when you do ghusl. What are the two? Number one is intention. إنما الأعمال بالنيات. We talked about intention previously. We said you have it at the beginning of the act, according to the majority of the ulama. And there are those that said that the intention can happen before. Even if you had you got up to the shower, you took your towel, that's your intention. Okay, so we mentioned that that's the the minority opinion. They said the intention can precede the act, and it can be simply, like you getting up to the bathroom, you took your towel. That is you making the intention to take a shower, right? The majority of scholars, they say, no, you have to make your intention at the time of starting your shower. Specifically, the Shafi'i school, they're very strict about that. They say at the time of starting your shower, you make your intention. That's the Shafi'i school. And from what I know, the majority opinion, the minority opinion is they say it can come before. Just like the example with the towel, you go in the shower, that's your intention. So intention is number one, according to which of the two opinions you follow. Again, I always encourage the cautious opinion, and that's the one I adhere to. But, again, sometimes it's hard to bring that to mind. You forget, and so on and so forth. And so you can take the other opinion in the cases of forgetfulness and just, difficulty gathering the intention. Number two, the other requirement for ghusl is to ensure that water reaches the entire body. The water must reach the entire body, hair, skin, and nails. This is very important. Hair, skins, and nails. The water has to reach all of it. So, if you have paint on your skin, your ghusl is invalid. You have to remove the paint. If you have nail polish for a woman, if she has nail polish on her skin, her ghusl is invalid. She has to remove the nail polish. If she has hair extension, right, solid hair extension that's pressing the hair, that's most likely going to prevent the water from reaching certain parts of her hair, the hair extension must be removed. I'm not saying hair extensions are permitted or not. That's not the hukum. I'm talking about just about ghusl. It has to be removed. If there's henna, no, henna is ink. It's not a barrier. Henna, tattoos are haram. But henna, tattoos, using a pen on your hand, a marker, those are ink. It's not a layer. It's actually on the skin. It's absorbed by the skin. So ink is permissible in the sense of wudu and ghusl. Is that clear? Any type of ink, permanent or temporary. It doesn't affect your ghusl or your wudu. But something that has substance, a layer, where you're talking about like the paint, you're talking about Band-Aid, you're talking about, example is, nail polish. These objects that create a layer on the skin, they must be removed. They have to be removed. If the bandage is not removable, then you have to make tayammum for that area. So you do ghusl and then you do tayammum. So if there's a bandage, it's excused, la bas, but you have to do tayammum for that part that you couldn't wash. Is that clear? So the entire body has to be washed. If for any reason you're unable to wash one part of it, you have a cast on, you have a bandage on, and you can't remove it, and so on and so forth, then you have to make tayammum. You do your ghusl for the ones you can wash, and then you make tayammum for the one you can't wash.
So how you do that?
No, you do regular tayammum. Oh yeah, and then the hands and then the face. So you have to do ghusl with the tayammum. And same with wudu. If you're able to wash everything but you can't wash one limb, you do ghusl and tayammum. Make sense? Inshallah. So that's an important mas'ala as well to understand. And again, with all of these masail, there are different opinions, different ijtihadat. There are scholars who say, for example, you only do tayammum, you don't have to do ghusl. If you can't wash all the limbs, there are some that say, khalas, ghusl doesn't apply, just do tayammum. Especially this can be used for somebody who's in the hospital and they're like on a hospital bed and so on. For them, we can just say, just do tayammum, don't even wash. In that case, maybe for them because of the hardship. But generally, if you're able and if it's something small, a bandage or a cast, and you wash everything, then you make tayammum. That's the most complete way. So that's the minimum ghusl, the wajibat of ghusl. That you have to have intention and you wash the whole body. Now we're going to get into the sunnahs of ghusl, how to do the ghusl in the sunnah manner. And this is on page 18. The commentator, rahimahullah, he says, to begin in the name of Allah, the most merciful, the compassionate. To begin in the name of Allah, the most merciful, the compassionate. And you can recite the basmalah in the shower if it's in a separate, if it's separated from the toilet. Right? Because you can't say Allah's name in the toilet. But some people, their toilet and shower is separate, or there's a barrier. They have maybe a glass door, or maybe there's a door actually separating the two. You can say the basmalah in the shower because it's separate from the toilet. You only don't say the basmalah in the toilet. Same thing with the wudu area, the sink. A lot of the bathrooms nowadays, in the masajid as well, the toilets are separate from the sink. You can say the basmalah in the wudu area. You can say the basmalah in the shower area. As long as it's separate from the toilet, you can say the dhikr anywhere else. The dhikr is only makruh in the toilet area. So wherever the toilet is, that's where you don't say dhikr. Outside of that area, bismillah, you can make the dhikr. It's fine. Any questions about that? Karana? You surprised? Yeah, so because it's a distinction that a lot of people they never, we don't make that clarity, right? Because why is the bathroom makruh to make dhikr of Allah? Because it's a place of najasa, right? You don't make the dhikr of Allah somewhere filthy. But in the shower, it's not a place of najasa. It's a place of shower and cleansing, right? And same thing in the wudu area. It's a place of cleansing and wudu, so it's permissible. It's just the najasa area where you use the toilet. That's where it's makruh. Make sense? You have a question, brother?
They are the same room, right?
If they're in the same room, then no. If they're in the same room, then just make the intention in your heart. Right? If the shower and the toilet are literally in the same space right next to each other, then of course no. And a lot of the bathroom, majority of the bathroom maybe we can say is like that. But a lot of the more, bigger homes today and, bigger apartments, they oftentimes now separate their showers. A lot of them will have a glass door separating the shower, or even a complete different door for the shower and the toilet. So if it's like that, then it's fine. You can do it. A curtain as well could possibly apply. So that's actually possible because a curtain is a divider. It's the equivalent to a wall. So if a person has a curtain up and they make their dhikr, it's fine. Wallahu a'lam. And so again, is it separate from the area of najasa? And so it makes sense that the curtain would be considered a partition. It's like equivalent to a wall, separating it from the toilet area. And so therefore, a person could make the dhikr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala there. Somebody could argue that no, if it's very close to the toilet, then no. That argument could be made. Either way, whichever you choose, if it's very close, then it's debatable. But if it's clearly separated and there's some space, then bismillah, it's fine. All right. And then the next, he said to remove any dirt or impurity on the body. So after you make the basmala, grab your soap, remove any filth under the arms, any filth, the private parts, wash the private parts. Anything dirty on your skin, wash it off. Anything dirty, wash it off after you say your basmala. Right? So underarms, private parts, all of that area, wash it off after you say your basmala. And then you perform wudu as the wudu of salah. This is you perform your wudu after. And then next after that, you pour water over the head 3 times. And then he says, intending to remove a major hadith or hayd. And again, we said the Shafi'i are really strict with the intention in these masail. And so if a person wants to adopt that and be as cautious as they can, and inshallah I would encourage it. Otherwise, they can suffice with that general intention that has happened before. And so to pour water over the head 3 times. So the person pours water over their head 3 times. You wash your head and so on. And if you wash with soap, it doesn't count as a wash. So the soap has to be washed off, and that's 1. And then 2nd time, and then a 3rd time. And then you wash the right side of the body 3 times, then the left side 3 times, ensuring that water reaches all the joints and folds, and to rub oneself. And so this is you washing the body right and left 3 times. And all, again, you can wash your body soap or any soap, or it doesn't matter as long as you rinse it off completely. That's once, and then 2 more afterwards. It would be at your 2nd and 3rd rinse. And then 9, the last and final step is the sunnah is to apply musk or any other fragrance on a piece of cotton and insert it into the private part for if a woman is taking a shower from a hayd. And this again, with modern soap, they all have fragrances. So it performs that purpose of creating a good fragrance. Because all of these modern soap and shampoos, all of these they're all fragrance. So that would be sufficient, wallahu alam, in fulfilling that soap. But if something additional was used, then that's fine and encouraged as well. And so that's the conclusion there. And then inshallah we'll need this last section and then conclude for the night bi'idhnillahi ta'ala. Here the author rahimahullah, he says the conditions of wudu are 10. There are 10 conditions of wudu. Number 1 is Islam. A person has to be Muslim for their wudu to be valid. So if a non-Muslim wants to pray, we can tell them pray. We don't have to tell them make wudu. If they want to do it just for the experience of it, of course there's nothing wrong with it. You're like, come here, I'll demonstrate how we make the wudu. It could be educational, that could be beneficial. We could show them how to, it could be for da'wah. But do they need it to pray? Their wudu salah is invalid anyways, and their wudu doesn't count anyways. So they can pray, but in their wudu they can make wudu, but it's not valid. It doesn't count, right? So it isn't valid. It doesn't mean they can't do it, but it isn't valid. Also, if we bring non-Muslims to the masajid to join the community, they shouldn't pray in the ranks of the Muslimin. They should pray on the sides or the back. And not even the sides, the back would be the most proper area. Because their salah is not valid, so we don't want them interrupting the rows of the salah. So therefore, you have them pray in the back. Wallahu alam. Next is the age of understanding. This is the age of tamyiz, right? And we said this is roughly the age of 7. Now, this is important to understand, and especially in salah. So first of all, a child before the age of 7, their wudu doesn't count. You can teach them for an educational purpose, but do they need wudu to pray salah? Their salah doesn't count, let alone their wudu. So you can tell them, Yalla, Bismillah, splash some water on yourself, come pray. It's educational, but is it a requirement you have to wash everything correct? They're still a baby. It doesn't really matter, right, at that point. So 7 and younger, don't worry about it. Let them splash a little water on themselves. Bismillah, go pray your salah, right? Just so that they get the experience and it's education experience for them. But the salah is invalid. Their wudu doesn't count. We said the a'mal are a person that doesn't receive reward and is not recorded for them till they reach the age of tamyiz. And tamyiz isn't even 7. Till they reach the age where they're able to tell the right hand from the left hand. And they're able to use the bathroom independently. And they're able to understand halal and haram and what do and don't and these things. When they're able to understand that, then you can be like, hey, don't pray your salah without wudu. But till that age, Bismillah, it's fadla. Pray without your salah. Girl, pray without her hijab. They're babies. Let them just get the experience. Don't. It doesn't matter right now. We just want to encourage them to come to salah, come to ibadah. Whatever way they want to participate, let them participate however they can participate. Right? And so this another message I wanted to bring regarding this is that the children who are below the age of 7, 8 years old, they shouldn't be standing in the middle of the rows because their salah doesn't count. So they're considered as breaking the row. So a lot of parents, they make the mistake when they bring their young children, they have them right beside them in the middle of the row. The issue with that is that it's breaking the row. It's considered a gap in the salah because the kid's salah isn't valid. It doesn't count. So they can pray. It's like somebody standing, their salah doesn't count. So they're considered absent. So that's why if somebody has a young kid they bring to the masjid, always have them at the ends of the row. Always have them at the ends of the row or pray with them in the back of the rows so that they're not breaking the rows of the salah. And so a lot of parents, again, I see this in all the masajid. It's so hard to tell parents otherwise, especially when they have their kids, they want to pray in the front row. So for those of us who are aware, inshallah, let's try to apply it and then educate others as well who have younger children to not break the rows. Ramadan is coming and a lot of parents that like to bring their kids and they end up breaking the rows with their younger children. And so for those with younger children, is always have them on the sides or have them in the back, but never in the middle of the rows because their salah is invalid. Third hukum, or the third condition, cleanliness from menstruation and postnatal bleeding. A woman who makes wudu during menses or nifas, her wudu is not valid. The fourth being free from that which prevents the water from reaching the skin. We talked about that, right? Anything that prevents the water from reaching the skin has to be removed. So paint, nail polish, band-aids, so on and so forth. If they could be removed, they have to be removed. I want to clarify here for women, oftentimes, or people say, oh, I have nail polish on, I'm not going to pray. She still has to pray with her nail polish on and make wudu with the nail polish on. And then when she takes it off, she has to make up the salah. But leaving the salah is a greater sin than not praying at all, than praying with an invalid wudu. Right? So this is an important distinction to make. Or if somebody has paint on their skin, first, you remove it as much as you can. With paint, it's a bit, because it's not intentional. Sometimes you're doing labor and it's stuck and you try to get it off. Especially, some of the older, nowadays, the newer types of paints is pretty easy to remove. You can a lot of times peel it off or just wipe it off with some wipes. But there were, the older paints, I remember it would be so hard to get off, right? So inshallah, you remove as much as you can. If it's too hard to remove, then you remove as much as you can. Tafadhal. Makeup, if it's a light amount to the point that it's not a barrier, then it doesn't interfere with the wudu. If it's very light, right, it's just like kind of like just a little concealer or something, it doesn't affect the wudu. But if it's a heavy amount where it's formed a layer over the skin, then that prevents the validation of wudu. So if women are putting on makeup, then they should make their wudu before their makeup so they can pray their salah.
We're talking about a painting thing. Really, we try the best whatever we thought we remove our.
Yeah, you do your best. You do your best.
I know, but later on, we done with it, we find out,
That's
we
excuse.
have to
No,
make out.
no, you don't have to, because you did your best. فَاتَّقُوا اللَّهَ مَا اسْتَطَعْتُمْ. Again, scholars debate, do you have to make it up or not? But the opinion that, Wallahu A'lam, that I personally adopt and follow, and that I saw, many of our mashayikh follows, that no, you did your best, you gave your effort. Allah says, فَاتَّقُوا اللَّهَ مَا اسْتَطَعْتُمْ. Khalas, there's no burden on you. The issue is the people that intentionally put on nail polish, and they know they're going to miss their salah. It's like, you intentionally decided to miss your salah for the sake of, an event or just, appearance and so on and so forth. It's a fitna, subhanAllah, so. And so for women, they like to look pretty. That's their nature. It's their fitrah. Every people have their fitrah. Men have every people have their fitna, right? Men have their own fitna and their struggles. And women, their fitna is they like to look beautiful. So sometimes the interest of looking beautiful and having good appearances prevents them from praying their salah and doing their ibadah correctly. And so with that, we tell them to, strengthen their iman and to not sacrifice their salah for the sake of nail polish or, having some makeup on or something of that sort. If they do, again, it's not haram, but use nail polish that's temporary, peelable. If you're going to have makeup on, do it after you made your wudu, for Maghrib, and then you pray Isha late, right? There's some ways around it, right? But don't just entirely give up your salah. Bismillah, yallah, today I'm on vacation, no salah today. You can't. That's not the way of the mu'min. Wallahu a'lam. You had a question?
I was going to say, so does the same thing apply with like braids?
With braids?
Yeah, because I know some women, they put on braids, and I don't know if braids in itself make prayer invalid.
No, braids do not invalidate the prayer. For braids, if it's like really tight braids, they have to be untangled. If it's really tight braids, they have to be untangled for ghusl, not wudu, for ghusl only. If it's heavy and thick and not like, it's big braids, then you can just pour water through it. As long as the water kind of goes through the head, then that's fine. It doesn't have to be untangled. Yeah. Yes, brother.
Can you handle a child Quran?
Yeah, because they're not najis. So a young child can, as long as they can handle it properly, that's fine. Yeah, so a young child can hold the Quran different than a non-Muslim, because that non-Muslim is an adult who's najis. But this child is tahir, the najasa doesn't apply to them, right? As long as they're physically not najis and they handle the Quran appropriately, it's fine. Wallahu a'lam.
So I got another question that's not really related, but so I read in the Sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, like specifically he's talking about the Quran. It said if you don't have like the qualifications to be teaching Quran, you shouldn't. So I was wondering, like, I got nieces and nephews, and often they ask me like, oh, how do you read this, that. So it's like, can I help them?
Yes. Teach. The hadith of the Prophet ﷺ says, بَلِّغُوا عَنِّي وَلَوْ آيَةً. Convey of me even if it's one verse. So whatever you know, you teach, you convey. If everybody had to be perfect, who would teach the deen? You see what I'm saying? Like, if everybody had to be perfect, who would teach the deen, right? If you have to have perfect knowledge, who would teach? Nobody, khalas, we would all sit in our homes and nobody would teach, right? So you have to convey from the deen whatever you know. But just make sure you don't, when it comes to matters of halal and haram and matters that are, beyond what you know, then khalas, refrain. At that point, do your research, right? So just knowing what you know, teach. If you know one ayah, you teach one ayah. You know one juz, teach one juz. You know some ahkam of salah, you learn ahkam of salah, teach ahkam salah. Don't go beyond what you know, right? So it takes some humility to stop and not talk about what you don't know. Any questions? Another one?
It's not like the kid, they know the ahkam.
I hope for the sisters and the ones online who are following, I hope that you are able to understand the questions I'm responding to, because they cannot hear the question. So I'll try to quote the question before I respond, inshallah. I'll try to make that a habit. But yes, brother, continue.
Like you're saying, like the kid, they know the Ahkam of Salah, can them, lead the Imam to the parent.
Yeah, if a kid knows the ahkam of salah and their qira'ah and everything is fine, they can lead salah. A child can lead salah. They don't have to be a baligh. They don't have to reach puberty. So the mumayyiz, we call the child age of discernment. When they reach the age of discernment, which is the sin of tamyiz, they know the ahkam of salah, they know how to make wudu correctly, they can read the Quran correctly. 8 years old, 9 years old, they know everything. Bismillah, tafaddal, lead salah. Right? Sayyidina Mu'adh bin Jabal used to read his people as a child. So it's been narrated and it's permissible, wallahu a'lam. And in some parts of the Muslim world, you see young qurra, 10-year-old kid leading the jama'ah. He hasn't even reached maturity yet. It's permissible. A 10-year-old son can lead his mother, his parents in salah. It's fine, inshallah, no problem. All right, so we mentioned the fourth condition for wudu is that they're being free from that which prevents the water from reaching the skin. Number 5, nothing should be upon the limb that will change the qualities of the water. Right? So if there's like dirt on your skin or blood, you have to wash that off before you make the wudu. I think that's pretty straightforward. Anything that changes the quality of the water, remove it first and then make the wudu. Number 6, knowledge of it being obligatory. So you have to know that wudu is wajib. So you have to know that this is, the wudu is wajib, the salah is wajib. Right? That's why it's important to know the wajibat. Number 7, not to assume the fard act as a sunnah. And this is a condition that Shafi'iyya have, that you cannot assume a fard act as a sunnah. All right? But this is something debated within the other madhahib, so we're not going to... but in general, alhamdulillah, here we're learning the wajibat from the sunnah, so we should be fine, inshallah, for those of you who are studying. As long as you know the wajibat from the sunnah, you're fine. Number 8, you use pure water, right? Purifying water. Number 9 and 10, entering of the time of salah and continuity for a person who constantly remains in the state of impurity. So this applies to somebody, number 9 and 10, to somebody whose wudu is always breaking. They have a medical condition, and for example, they're always leaking urine. And may Allah give us all health and afiyah and protection from illnesses. But, subhanAllah, some people can be tested with their health. And so this person could always be having leakage of urine throughout the day. And sometimes as people get older, it happens. So if a person has that, the scholars, they say, you have to wear some type of socket over the private part, so to prevent the clothes from being najis. That's the one, first of all. And then second, you cannot make wudu till the time of salah enters, and as soon as you make wudu, you have to pray. And so this is unique. This is for certain people who have a medical condition where they're always leaking urine. They have to have some type of socket or something they cover over their private part to prevent the najasa from reaching the rest of the clothes. And then second, they cannot make wudu till the time of salah enters, and as soon as they make wudu, they must pray. They cannot delay because they're going to get najis. So they must pray right away. And so if subhanAllah, again, some people might have a medical condition, they might get old, and it might be due to old age. And so whatever the reason might be, it could be maybe due to gas. They're always passing gas and they can't control it, subhanAllah. That could be a reason. And this is like continuous, like every minute, every other minute, every 3-4 minutes, something like that. Or so anything like that where it's consistently, it's not stopping, that's how their hukum is. That's how they make their wudu. And that's the time of their wudu, that's how, when they make their wudu as well. Inshallah, we'll stop here. Tomorrow, not tomorrow night, Wednesday night, we'll get into the nullifiers of wudu. And these are the things that break wudu. This is a very important chapter. And then also the ahkam after it are also very important. We're going to learn about what is haram when you don't have wudu. What can you do, what can you not do? What is haram when you're on menses for women? And what is haram when you are in janaba? This is especially important because a lot of times women don't come to the masajid and they miss classes when they're on their menses and so on and so forth. So how should women navigate those issues? How should we encourage our families and so on? And also for ourselves, knowing, like, can we touch the mushaf, can we not? All of these ahkam Inshallah ta'ala, we'll get into Wednesday night, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to benefit us by what He has taught us and to increase us in knowledge and to grant us beneficial knowledge. He is Al-Alim Al-Hakim. Wa sallallahu wa sallam wa baraka ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi walhamdulillahi rabbil alameen.